we're talking about like some X-Men news. So I'm going to read the article straight away, just to let you know what's happening with the X-Men. So that there's a new reboot of the X-Men called the Mutants that is being worked on by Marvel Studios. So we've been waiting a long time for some kind of update on Marvel Studios plans for the X-Men. A new report indicates that Kevin Feige is heading up the new feature titled The Mutants. Now, first things first, the anti-SJWs are out at it again. Young men, white men, usually, unfortunately, who seem to believe that the world and everything in it is attacking them. Now, sometimes they're right. A lot of the time they're wrong, or they're just being a little bit overly sensitive. But they've taken exception in this case to the fact that instead of X-Men, this new reboot is being called The Mutants. Now, I have other issues with this. First of all, I don't know if they are going to go the woke route and start trying to, race bend like Wolverine and all of these kind of guys. We'll look into that, but and start trying to mess with the original cast of the X-Men. And I'm going to talk about that because I think that's really important. Like gender bending and race bending the X-Men makes no fucking sense. And I'll state categorically why it makes no sense. Because the X-Men as characters have some of the coolest Black, LGBT, women characters ever. There is no need to race bend, or do anything with any X-Men character, because you've got so many great mutants to choose from and so many great teams to choose from that it's completely unnecessary. So if they go into the X-Men with a woke agenda of gender bending and doing all this, then I'll be mad at that one, because that makes no sense. When you've got enough Black characters and Latino characters and Asian characters in the X-Men, you do not need to be fucking race bending and gender bending anything in the X-Men universe. There's no fucking reason. But let's go into the article and see what it has to say, and then I'm going to give you some kind of more proof as to why I think it would be such a thing with the X-Men. So fans have been curious about Marvel Studios' plans for the X-Men ever since Disney acquired the rights to the characters via the takeover of 20th Century Fox's assets back in 2019. And now we finally have some idea of what Kevin Feige and co. have in store for the Uncanny Heroes. According to the Illuminati, Marvel is moving forward on a feature titled The Mutants, which will finally introduce the X-Men to the MCU. I really didn't want the MCU to get the X-Men. I really, really didn't. They had a fucking slam dunk with the X-Men universe at Fox. It's so unfortunate that they did that. They just got the wrong people to develop these characters. It's crazy to me. They had that great 90s animated show, and then you had this great runs by writers of the X-Men in the 90s. The X-Men was the hottest comic in the 90s, straight up. It was doing numbers, bro. It was the best comic, best TV show, everyone was about the X-Men. And the films absolutely ruined it. The X-Men were as cool as Batman. The X-Men were as cool as fucking Batman. Like, if Batman is the coolest superhero franchise right now, like, everyone loves Batman. Whether you're an MCU fan, a DC fan, a Snyder fan, a comics fan, an animated series fan, everybody loves loves Batman because it's grounded, it's real, it's got great it's got the Joker, the most cool villains, everything. The X-Men was that in the 90s. They came up big time in the 90s. So to me, the fact that the Fox messed it up so badly, and I will talk about how Fox messed it up, was fucking stupid. It was so redundant what they did. And now the MCU has it. And I just don't think, I'm worried that the MCU, one, is going to go woke. And then two, is really going to veer away from the darker storylines of the X-Men, which is where I always thought the X-Men should have gone. They should have done a really, really grounded version of the X-Men, where it's not in some weird sci-fi world where it's like literally mutants living in our world with our tech, with our history, just suddenly sprouting up in the real world, and how the world would deal with that, and we would be frightened and we would be scared and we would want to control these mutants, especially if they became terrorist groups, like imagine that. You could have done all sorts with the X-Men in a more grounded universe. And I always thought that was the direction they should have gone. Unfortunately, they did not. Or just go all out and do the kind of Chris Claremont, like in space X-Men, like where it's just completely out there, as well. I would have always loved the X-Men in the kind of aesthetic of, almost the Terminator movies. The first two, obviously, not the really, really good ones after the first two. No, the first two, especially when they go to the future of the Terminator, right? Like in the Terminator movies, when they're in the future, where you see all the Terminators with the laser stuff and all of that kind of stuff. I thought that would be a really cool aesthetic to do an X-Men movie in the future that deals with time travel and deals with space travel and stuff like that. But anyway, I don't know that the MCU is going to do that. I think it's just going to get bogged down in all of their, connected universe and with Doctor Strange and all of this kind of stuff. And the X-Men have always functioned better as a side universe away from Spider-Man and the Hulk, and because it never made sense, right? It never fucking made sense having the X-Men in that universe, because why aren't the government afraid of Spider-Man and the non-mutant superheroes, right? Why are they only afraid of mutants? Like, surely they should be afraid of it. They should be afraid of Captain America. They should be afraid of Iron Man. They should be afraid of if you're afraid of people with superpowers, like the Avengers are okay, but the X-Men are somehow like too much for you. It never made sense to me. Thor, all of them should be, if you're going to run with that, everyone in the universe who has superpowers should be gone after, just like the mutants. So for me, the mutants always made much more sense as a separate universe where they're the only ones with superpowers. It's just mutants, and they're fighting a civil war with humanity almost, or a cold war with humanity. So no word on the potential writers or directors, but we know Avengers Endgame filmmakers, oh God. Joe and Anthony Russo are huge X-Men fans and have said on a few different occasions that they'd love to take a crack at the team if the opportunity should arise. Those are like daggers to my fucking heart. I don't care what anybody says. Avengers Endgame and Avengers Infinity War are fucking overrated. Yes, they did a good job on the Civil War, and they did a good job on the Winter Soldier. Those, they really did do fantastic jobs, but those are not the tone I want for an X-Men movie. They're too, I don't know, MCU, goofy, it doesn't have any stakes or, like the bulls. I want the X-Men to be a little bit darker of a franchise. I really think that would help it a lot. And really lean into, like, this is racism. Like, they're dealing with fucking modern day civil rights kind of movement where the mutants are like really discriminated against, on a serious fucking level. It's not a joke. Like, mutants are being taken out like as kids and, under a democratic system. And I think that is the powerful story of the X-Men, and where it works as a real allegory for the human race. I want them to lean more into that. And I don't think the MCU is going to do that because it's too lighthearted. And Fox didn't lean into it either. Fox, when they made their movies, didn't really lean into that enough. And it was annoying, So please, please, just to remind you, if you're watching now, you're enjoying, please, give me a high five, smash the like button, subscribe if you like my conversations and what I'm talking about, and tell me what you think of, do you think Fox did the X-Men well? I'm going to go through all the movies now, and see what I think of the Fox's X-Men movies. And also, do you trust the MCU with the X-Men as a franchise? Do you think it will take it where it needs to be? Because a lot of people are excited for the MCU taking over the X-Men. I'm really not, because at least with Fox, yeah, they did some bad movies, but at least they were films, and some of them were actually quite good. So anyway, so the brothers reveal that they are working on a new superhero project that they're very excited about. Is there any chance? Pure speculation, of course, but you never know. This is obviously a major story, and while the source has been spot on with the scoops on a regular basis, it's best not to get too excited until we hear from the trade, as these things tend to be subject to change. So there's not really much news on this, right? But the reason I wanted to talk to people about it was, one, I think there's a fear amongst the comic book, comic books are being, films and properties are being taken over by agendas, and there's no doubt about that. And one of the things that has been attacked often is, there's so many great female characters in the X-Men. Why is it called the X-Men? So the title has apparently that Kevin Feige's going with is the Mutants, and men mad, of course. But to me, I don't think that's a sign of alarm. I think when you start getting weird castings, Black Wolverine, Asian Jean Grey, I think that's when you start to see that, then you can start to get your alarm bells up, because you can say, one, that these people don't care about the X-Men lore, and all the different X-Men groups, and are just really about their agenda, and let's make Wolverine black because I guess because we need more representation and blah blah blah. Well, if you want more representation, there's a lot of original black characters in the X-Men or universe, so there's no need for that, and they're powerful and they're cool. It's not like in DC where a lot of the black superheroes just aren't that cool as well. They don't seem to have a lot of marketability. The X-Men groups, which have diversity in them, are not only marketable, they're probably more marketable than the original X-Men team, and I'm going to go into that in a second. So looking at this kind of thing that he's calling it the Mutants, I don't think that's a big problem. You want to separate yourself from the Fox franchise, which has always gone with X-Men. Calling yourself the Mutants could separate the franchise. My main concern about the MCU is going too light characters and giving us more of the same, basically. Yeah, they'll have better budgets, better CGI, but it's still not going to get to the core of why people fell in love with that X-Men animated series. Which brings me to the X-Men animated series. My main failure, and it's pissed me off, that even though I think, and this is what I go into, is it too late? Is it really too late for the X-Men franchise? The X-Men franchise that I think everybody really wanted. From the 90s, right? When these X-Men movies were first coming out. And so for me, what I'm talking about here is that cast from the animated series. Like, they've always played around, and I get it. They wanted to go back to the original cast with, just Beast and Wolverine and whatever. And it was like they were, I don't know what the problem of the directors and the producers were. The reason they even got a greenlit X-Men movie was because of the animated series. So why did they make Rogue shit? Why did they make Rogue a completely different character? It became the Wolverine show. All the mutant powers were crap. They didn't display them in a good or interesting way. It was mainly just like Wolverine style characters. Wolverine doing all of the cool fighting. It was the Wolverine show, right? And the great thing about the X-Men animated series was that it was an ensemble show. And each episode was about different characters. My favorite characters, for instance, were Gambit and Rogue. I thought Gambit and Rogue, were one of the main, I thought they were fan favorites. They would be fan favorites because everybody kept asking for Gambit and Rogue, much to the chagrin of the producers of the X-Men movies. Like, we're 3 fucking movies in and we haven't seen Gambit, and Rogue is some angsty teenage girl who doesn't want her fucking powers and doesn't have her super strength or awesome flight powers. We talk about wanting strong women, strong female characters in these fucking films. Rogue was an awesome, badass character. She was a fan favorite. I mean, I think, yeah, all right, Wolverine was the most popular because kids are dumb, right? And kids like, ooh, he's angry and blah, blah, blah. But most people, apart, if you said Wolverine from the animated series, yeah, he was the favorite. But everyone would say then it was Gambit, Rogue, we liked Storm a lot. These are characters that were cool and they should have made a lot out of. I even like Beast. Beast, they did well with Kelsey Grammer. So at least they did him well once. Once they went into the future movies, they did him trash. But that is always what I wanted to see. And, I think it would be really good if the Mutants project that they're working on is actually an adaptation and like really goes into that X-Men animated series cast that we wanted to see. My problem though is it too late for that now? Is it too late to have a proper Gambit, a proper Rogue, and a real Storm? Because nobody's excited for Storm or Rogue anymore, because the films have done such a bad job of translating them. And that's the fucking major fucking problem with this franchise and fixing it. And then you add the MCU layer, making everything cheesy and they can't deal with the bigger, like people talk about Kevin Feige taking over the DC, and I'm like, no, because DC is dark. Well, it's not darker, it's more mature than the Marvel comics are. Like when it comes to the Avengers, like Marvel Comics is more serious when it comes to other characters around it, like Daredevil or like or the X-Men and stuff like that. But when it comes to the Avengers have always been a light-hearted, cartoony, not very serious characters, right? So it's fine. Kevin Feige's aesthetic really fits that, but it does not fit properties like the X-Men and I'm sorry, it does not fit the DC universe, which is a much more serious universe, where it takes themes of mythology and whatever much more seriously. So X-Men, I feel, it's when it's dealing with themes of racism and prejudice and it's got undertones of kind of LGBTQ issues being explored there. I don't think Kevin Feige has the stuff to really bring out those elements of the X-Men that they need to bring out to really make it pop. In terms of the films, from the jump, I don't know that there's any X-Men film that I really actually like. X-Men 1 is garbage. X-Men 2 I like only because of Brian Cox's performance in that movie. X-Men 3, The Last Stand, people hate it. I thought it was as good as X-Men 1. I didn't think X-Men 1 was very good. X-Men First Class, I like the Magneto and Professor X bits of that film. The kids were kind of boring. Again, why are you giving me these shit X-Men with their terrible powers? Like, what was the character that had the most interesting power in the X-Men First Class was Darwin, and they fucking killed him. Like, they killed the black guy, why they killed the black guy, I don't know. But he had the most interesting power where he could adapt to any power, and they just go, you get Kevin Bacon was actually a great villain in that. One of the best comic book villains of all time, just because there's not many great comic book villains in films. But he puts his power in Darwin, and Darwin just explodes. And I expected him to come back later in the movie. Never comes back. He was the kid with the most interesting power in that whole thing. And that's one of the problems with these X-Men movies. All of the powers they use are fucking lame. They're fucking lame. You looked at, what was it, in X-Men First Class. Loved the movie, loved how they used Magneto, loved how they used Professor X, but the rest of the cast, all right, there's Dolphin Girl, there's Cyclops' brother, who basically just has Cyclops powers, but coming from his chest. There's, who else was in it? There's Beast, he's never had really the most interesting powers. Like, they were trash, bro. And the bad guys didn't have many interesting powers either in X-Men First Class. They were trash. X-Men Days of Future Past. Again, just Wolverine and Magneto. Again, using Magneto in every movie as the villain. Trash. Complete fucking trash. X-Men Apocalypse. They finally use a new villain in these X-Men movies. Finally, it's not Magneto, and he's trash. He's not good. They made the first 5 minutes of X-Men Apocalypse were the best 5 minutes. All the X-Men, this fucking movie, man. He gets the fucking He gets the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and the ones in the first 5 minutes of the film are cool and have great powers, and they kill them, and then they get fucking Angel. Why is Angel one of what you want the 4 best mutants, and you choose a mutant who can just fly, and he can't even fly of his own volition. He can only fly with wings, which are a target. If you shoot the wings, he's fucked. It was trash. It was trash. X-Men Apocalypse was trash. Deadpool 2 I actually liked, mainly because of Domino. Finally, you have a character who actually has interesting powers. So Domino was excellent in Deadpool 2. I've never liked Deadpool as a character. I don't like his gimmick. He's kind of stupid, but the film was okay because of Domino. Doc Phoenix. was trash. It wasn't as bad as people make out, but it was pretty fucking bad. And the New Mutants, I can't even get through that movie because I'm sure I hear the powers may actually be better in that movie, but I can't get through it. And what's missing here? You know, you've got X-Men Wolverine as well, some other ones, all trash, all fucking trash. And what's missing here is that fucking cost. Oh, and Logan as well, completely overrated. The powers they use in it are trash. It's again Wolverine versus fucking Wolverine. It's like, come on, guys, can we get better bad guys, more interesting powers being used? This is an X-Men universe. They're mutants with cool fucking powers. Let's fucking go. Let's use them. So all of the X-Men movies for me have just been, apart from maybe X-Men First Class, have been kind of failures, to be honest, like on what an X-Men movie can potentially be. And now I think we've moved so far away from the animated series and people who were fans of that original animated series, and these stupid, trashy X-Men movies have bastardized which they made like X-Men animated shows out of, have made like even the X-Men animated shows afterwards were lamer than the original X-Men fucking animated series. So that's the whole memory of the cool Rogue and Gambit. It's almost too late for those characters, and Jubilee, and you know, to give them their day in court, to give them their day in the sun. It is too late for them. So how can really the MCU, even with the best of will, reboot this franchise and make it good? My answer to that, especially with the woke agenda that's going on now, a way we can do that organically rather than, you know, try and force feed people, you know, things that they don't want, like gender bent and race bent characters, is go with Generation X. So Generation X is it was a fictional team that was basically the X-Men team with Jubilee in it, but it was written by Scott Lobdell and artist Chris Bachalo, and it was such a fucking excellent fucking written comic. It's one of the best comics of all time. Really is. Such a good comic. And these were teenage mutants who were being trained by Banshee and Emma Frost, who had been turned from a supervillainess into a good guy. So Banshee and Emma Frost were now teaching these mutants. You know, they were on the same grounds as Charles Xavier, so you could have, you know, your cameos by other X-Men like Wolverine, like Gambit, like, you know, all of that stuff. But you can really start with a fresh set of characters. And one thing that's great about these characters is, one, there's no affiliation with them, so you can race bend anyone you want without like having much issue. But you don't really need to race bend these characters. All of them have awesome powers, and they come with what's in the tin. You've got Chamber, who's got an awesome fucking power set, a British character who has basically his chest exploded from the psionic energy that he had within him. And basically he's got kind of like this telepathic psionic energy that's within his chest, which gives him telepathy, the ability to create this psionic burst that will destroy anything. He's super powerful British guy. You can make him Asian, you can make him, you know, Indian, you can do whatever with him, like an Indian British guy, whatever you want to, you know, get more diversity in the cast. So he's great. Jonathan Chambers. You had Husk, who was fantastic. She was American kind of girl who found from Kentucky, who a coal mining town, who found out like she could rip off her skin and into any substance that she wanted. So it'd be diamond, it could be rock, it could be steel, it could be any substance that she can think of. She can rip off us and turn it into that. That's an awesome power and visually would look amazing. You had M, who was fucking awesome. Just basically complete fucking badass black woman. So you've got a great kind. She's very posh. Superhuman strength, speed, agility. She's the Mary Sue of all Mary Sues. Dexterity, reflexes, coordination, balance, vision, hearing, and endurance, plus genius level intellect, intuitive aptitude, accelerated healing factor, supersonic flight, telekinesis, telepathy. Oh no, you can't give her telepathy. I didn't remember having telepathy. I think basically what it was is that she was two twin sisters with separate powers that came together, and because of that, they had many different powers. When they combined together, like they had a super intellect, super strength, and all of that. But basically, what she had was super intelligence, super strength, flight, and like kind of almost an invulnerability, but not quite invulnerability. She could like kind of rogue level invulnerability, right? So she fucking badass. And then of course there was my man, and Sync was like basically he could sync up with anybody's powers. He had this rainbow aura basically where he could, if he was around people, he could sync up with their powers and use them. And so he has the ability to duplicate superpowered beings' powers, mastery of any powers duplicated, can metabolize bioenergy signatures. He was fantastic. For the Latinos, you had Skin, who was an amazing character. Like he was kind of a gangster. Well, maybe that wouldn't be so great, but the way they did it was like really good. Like he did come from that background, but it made sense basically. And he had the ability to like have his skin like basically he had the Fantastic Four's guy's powers. What's his name? Mr. Fantastic's powers, basically, with the skin, right? So he was cool. So he had a really, really diverse cast of characters there. And I just think these are the kind of teams that you need to explore. And really, you've got such a good stories that are already written. All you have to read volume 1 and 2 to make a great show, or if you don't want to do a great film, or if you don't want to do a great film, a film with these characters, you want to see if they work first, do a TV show of these characters. And the material is all there, and they're young, they'll appeal to teenagers. You've got Jubilee there, so you've got one character from the X-Men that connects, the old X-Men movies that connects to this universe. You have full diversity. You've got your Asian, you've got Black, you've got every color of the rainbow covered. So I just think this would be such, and it's very international as well. There's British, there's Scottish people, there's Europeans, so I just think this would be so much better a way to actually reboot the X-Men universe rather than going back and either trying to capture the magic from the X-Men animated series universe, which is, it's just gone. That time is gone. We waited too long for that, and the excitement, as we're exhausted as X-Men fans to actually get a good Gambit, to get a good Rogue. So that's my idea. I mean, there's other X-Men teams as well. There's X-Force. There's the ones in the future where you could do a kind of, as I said, Terminator style movie with. So there's so many. There's the Canadian X-Men. So many teams that they could explore apart from the main team. I think you could do much more and be much more liberated to do interesting storylines than going right back again to the same X-Men team that has been explored for years now. So that's my thoughts on the X-Men universe and what they can do with the X-Men movies. Please give me a high five, smash the like button, and tell me what you think. Where do you think the X-Men series should go? Who do you think who do you who do you think are you excited for the MCU taking a universe? So again, like, subscribe for more content like this, and also comment. Please comment. I love the comments, and I always answer back to comments. And upon that, see you on the flip side, and I love you 3000.